Alright, so once we learn about some advanced topics in SASS, it's time to start building our second project, which actually will be based on this advanced stuff. So I think it will be really interesting for you. Our second project will be a website about something like clothes store. So in this video, I'm going to describe it and also will prepare our working environment. So the project will consist of several sections. We will start from header, which includes two navigations, heading and logo. Second navigation, one of its items has drop-down menu. Header is followed by slideshow. It consists of a couple of slides with images and some content. And also, as you see, slides are changing with fade effect. Next section represents some featured products. We have here nice hover effect. And also at the end of this section, we have button, which also has really nice hover effect. Lastly, at the bottom, we have footer with several parts. We have here some lists and also forms section. Alright, that's all about our project. I hope it will be interesting and you will enjoy it because we're going to use some really nice techniques from SASS. Like previous project, this one will be responsive for all screen sizes as well. As you notice, project is launched in Mozilla Firefox. The reason is that it's mostly built based on CSS Grid, and this browser has the perfect developer tools for this module. Using it, we can easily see and manage our grid layout. Alright, on desktop I have created new folder. It's called Project 2 Clothes Store. Let's open it in brackets. So we have here a couple of files and folders. We have index.html, package.json, which is already prepared. Also, there are folders for images, for main.css file, and lastly we have SCSS folder, in which I'm going to create a couple of folders and SCSS files. In our first project, we used kind of simple file structure, and as I promised, in our second project, we're going to use relatively complex file structure, which is mostly used in sort of big projects. Alright, first of all, let's create main.scss file, in which we will import all other files. So, as I said, I'm going to create a couple of folders. First one is going to be abstracts, in which I will insert files for variables and for mixins. So let's go ahead and create both of them. Right, variables.scss. And next one should be mixins.scss. Next folder should be base, in which I'm going to create base.scss. More precisely, it's underscore base.scss file. I don't mention it every time, but as you know, each partial's file name should always start with underscore. Main.scss file is the only file which doesn't need underscore. Alright, next folder is going to be components. It will include files for different components of project, such as, for example, button, heading, logo, and so on. For now, I'm going to leave it empty, and throughout the project, we will create those files whenever we need them. Okay. Next folder will be layout, in which we will create files for separate sections like header, footer, and so on. And the last folder that I'm going to create is pages. Actually, throughout this project, we're not going to work in it, but anyway, I decided to create it. In general, this folder includes files for different pages. You may have project which will consist of pages like about us, contact, and so on. And besides that, you may come across two other folders, vendors and themes. In vendors folder, we can have some third-party CSS files, some libraries and frameworks. As for themes folder, it may contain some various themes. Alright, that's all about file structure. Next, I'm going to import those three files in main.scss file. Write import, then folder name abstracts / variables. Let's duplicate it and write mixins. And then import base.scss file from base folder. Write import base / base. Alright, let's open index.html file. As you see, we have here basic HTML file structure with several links. We have here a link for icon, which is displayed in title bar. Also, we have some Google fonts, font awesome icons, and link for main.css file in which our SASS code will be compiled. Let's run this file in browser using live preview mode. Then open terminal and navigate to our folder, write cd desktop, then cd project2 close store, and run command npm run watch. Actually, I'm going to suggest that sometimes your SASS code might not be compiled, especially when we create new files and import them. So if it happens, I recommend to terminate compiling using Ctrl+C, then Y, and run it again using npm run watch. Alright, so before we finish this lecture, I'm going to create some basic default styles. Let's open base.scss file and select all the elements which we will create. Use asterisk. At first, get rid of default margin and padding. Set both of them as 0. And then define font family. I'm going to use Josephine Sans serif. Alright, so throughout this project we're going to use mostly rem as a measurement unit. As you know, by default font size of HTML element is set as 16 pixels, and therefore 1 rem by default is equal to 16 pixels. In our case, I want 1 rem to be equal to 10 pixels because I think it will be more convenient. So in order to do that, we need to decrease default font size of HTML element. In order to calculate font size of HTML, we have to divide 10 pixels by 16 pixels. If we calculate, we will get 0.625. And in order to convert it into percentage, we need to multiply it by 100. So, as a value of font size of HTML, we have to write 62.5%. So again, we want 1 rem to be equal to 10 pixels in order to make working process more convenient. By default, font size of HTML is equal to 16 pixels, so we need to decrease it. The calculation that we made here gives the value, 62.5%, which will make 1 rem equal to 10 pixels. I think it makes sense to you, but if not, again, I recommend to check out our CSS course in which we explain deeply all of this stuff. Alright, that's it about project preview and its setup. You have to download starter files which are attached to this lecture and you'll be ready to go. So, see you in the next video. Alright, so we are ready to start building our second project called Clothes Store. In previous lecture we prepared everything to start working, and first that we're going to do is to create structure of first part of our project, which is going to be header. Actually, header will consist of a couple of navigations. Also, we will have logo and main heading. So let's go ahead and start building it. All different sections of our project will be wrapped by container. So first of all, let's create it. Open development with class name container. Next, I'm going to insert in it header element, which will have class header. So the first member of header is going to be a logo. It will be wrapped by development with class name logo. And then inside it, let's insert image. In source attribute, let's indicate path of image. We have folder called images, and we need to select image called logo.png, and also assign to image element class logo img. Alright, as we said, header will consist of several navigations. Actually, we will have 2 of them. So I'm going to create first one. Let's open nav element and assign to it class first nav. Inside nav element, let's create list, open UL element. It will have class name first nav list. Actually, in first navigation, we're going to have 4 list items. So let's create first one and assign to it class first nav item. Inside li element, let's insert link with class name first nav link. Then link should be followed by font awesome icon. I mean, we need here search icon. So let's create iElement and assign to it class FAS fa-search. And then insert here as a content search. Alright, so the first item is ready. As we said, we're going to have 4 of them. So let's duplicate li element 3 times. For second item, we don't need font awesome icon, so let's delete it. And as a content, write contact us. In the same way, I'm going to get rid of font awesome icon for third item. And then as a content, let's write sign in. As for the last item, I'm going to change class name of font awesome icon. We need here icon of cart. So let's write here shopping cart. And as a content, let's open parentheses and insert in it 0. Alright, so here we have our first navigation. Next I'm going to move on and create main heading of our header. So after nav element, let's open div and assign to it class heading. So this div element will include h1 heading element, which will have class heading text. And as a content, let's insert close store. Alright, so the last member of header should be second navigation. Let's open again nav element and assign to it class second nav. Then inside it we need list with class name second nav list. So our second navigation will consist of 5 items, and also one of them will have drop-down menu. Let's go ahead and create a li element and assign to it class second nav item. Next we need link, which will have class second nav link. And as a content, let's insert here shop. Alright, let's duplicate list element 4 times. Change content for each item. For second one, we need gift ideas. Next one will be about us. Then our team. And for last one, write news. So the last thing that we have to do in this lecture is to create drop-down menu for second list element. It will be represented by another list. So let's insert UL and assign to it class dropdown. Also we need another class for li element. Let's call it dropdown li. Then inside UL element, let's open a list item with class dropdown item. Then we need to insert here link, which will have class dropdown link. And as a content, write under $25. Let's duplicate li element twice and just change content. For second one, write $25 and $50. And for last one, write above $50. Alright, so that's it about header. We created its structure. Here you can see all the elements, just pure HTML. So it's time to start styling them, and for that, let's move on to the next lecture. Alright, so in previous lecture we created structure first part of our project, which is header. As you see, all the elements are created. We have here logo, heading, and 2 navigations. So now it's time to start styling this section, but first thing that I want to do is to take care of layout of entire container. Actually, I'm going to do that using CSS grid. So let's open base.scss file, in which I'm going to insert styles regarding layout of container. We already have here some basic styles. So after HTML, let's select container and assign to it display grid. Actually, I'm going to inspect the page and display grid lines in order to manage layout of elements in kind of convenient way. For that, we have to check this little box. So as you see, grid lines are displayed. Alright, now I'm going to define columns and rows for a container. For that, we have to use properties called grid template columns and grid template rows. Let's start from columns. Overall, we're going to have 10 columns. So let's define first one. For that, I want to use function called min-max, which defines minimum and maximum size of column. So it takes two arguments. As the first one, let's insert 6 rams. As for maximum size, I'm going to use 1 fractional unit. Alright, next 8 columns will have the same size, so I'm going to use function called repeat. As a number of columns, let's insert 8. As for size, again, I'm going to use min-max function with values min content and 16 rams. Actually, I'm not going to explain deeply what those functions and values do because it's not quite a subject of our course. If we explain everything in details, it will take much time. Again, I want to recommend as a prerequisite our CSS course, in which you will meet detailed explanations regarding CSS grid and not only CSS grid. Alright, let's go ahead and create 10th column. It will have the same size as the first one does, so let's copy and paste it here. So we have here 10 columns, and now it's time to define rows. Overall, we're going to have 4 different sections, so therefore we need 4 rows. Let's write grid template rows, then use again repeat function, insert here number of rows 4, and as a size write min content. Last thing regarding layout of container is to create some space between rows using grid row gap, which will have value 1.6 ram. Alright, so here we have 4 rows, and actually with layout of container we are done. Last thing that I want to do regarding container is to change its background color. Actually, I'm going to organize now colors for entire project. For that, let's open a file called variables.scss, in which I will demonstrate how we can manage coloring using map and custom function. So let's create map, call it colors. It will hold a couple of key value pairs. Let's start with primary color, assign to it color 333. Next one will be secondary, write color FFE. Then we will have tertiary with color F2, F0, F1. And last one will be quaternary with color F5B149. Alright, next let's create function. Let's call it color. As a parameter, let's insert here color name. So when we need some color from this map, we need to call this function. It will give us needed color, and in order to get this color, we have to return some value. Then we need to use function called mapGet. As you know, we need to pass here 2 arguments. First one is name of map, in this case colors. As for second one, it should be key, but this key will be different for different colors. Therefore, I'm going to pass here parameter of function color name. Actually, we could use only mapGet function here, but then we would need to define those 2 arguments all the time. But in case of this custom function, we will just need to call it and pass 1 argument. For example, primary or secondary and so on. Alright, let's see in practice how we can use map and function together. Let's go back to base.scss file, define background color for container. So now in order to execute function, which we created a second ago, we need to call it using its name, color, and as an argument, let's insert here tertiary, which is a key of 3rd color in map. So as you can see, background color of container is changed, and if we check main.css file, you will see that container has its background color, which is tertiary. Alright, that's all about container. I think will be better if we take some break here and continue working on header in the next video. Alright, so in the last video we worked on layout of container, and now it's time to move on and do the same for header, and then we have to style elements inside it. Actually, for header I'm going to create new file. It will be a part of layout folder. So let's create new file and call it header.scss. In order to make this file working, we need to import it in main.scss file. So let's open it and write import, then indicate folder name, layout, then /header. Alright, so header will take up first row and all 10 columns. Let's go ahead and select it, write header, then define grid column. So as we said, header should take up all the columns. Therefore, as a starting column line number, we need 1. As for ending one, we can write either 11 because we have 10 columns or -1. Alright, next we need to define grid row. We need header to take up first row, therefore line numbers should be 1 and 2. Okay, so that's it about layout of header. Next we need to align elements inside it. For that we have to make header as a grid container. Let's write display grid. Then for its containing elements, define columns and rows. Overall we will have 9 columns, so let's define grid template columns. First and last columns will have size as 1 fractional unit. As for the rest 7 columns, which will be placed between first and last columns, they will have same size. So let's use repeat function. Insert number of columns 7. As for size, I'm going to use min-max function, and as the values write min content 16 rams. Alright, that's all about columns. As for rows, we will have 3 of them, so let's define grid template rows. I'm going to use min content for all 3 rows, so let's write repeat function, insert number of rows 3, and then min content. And lastly, let's create some space between columns and rows using grid gap, which should have value as 2 rams. Alright, so that's it about header. If we check this little box, then grid lines for header will be displayed. As you see, it consists of 9 columns and we have 3 rows. Okay, now it's time to start working on individual elements of header. First element which I'm going to take care of is logo. For now it's quite bigger. Let's go ahead and create new file in components folder, call it logo.scss, and then import it in main.scss file, write import, then folder name components /logo. Alright, let's select logo, div element. First of all, I'm going to align it. It will take up first column in first row, so let's define grid column with line numbers 1 and 2, and then grid row with line numbers 1 and 2 as well. For now, nothing is changed here because we need to decrease size of image, so let's select it using nesting. It has class name logo img, so write ampersand img, and then define width as 10 rams. As for height, let's make it 100%. Alright, so size of logo is decreased, and the last thing regarding it is to create some space on all 4 sides using padding. Let's assign to div element padding with value 1 rem. Okay, so that's it about logo. We are done with it. Next element that I'm going to take care of is heading. Let's go ahead and create new file for it, which will be part of components folder. Let's call the file heading.scss, and then import it in main.scss file. Then select div element with class name heading. First of all, I'm going to align it. Actually, it will take up space from 4th column to 7th, and it will be placed in 2nd row. So let's go ahead and define grid column with line numbers 4 and 7. As for grid row, we need 2 and 3. Alright, so heading is aligned, and now we have to style it. Let's select heading element using nesting. It has class name heading text, so write ampersand text. At first, let's define font family. In this case, I'm going to use font called Great Vibes, cursive. Then I'm going to increase its font size, but actually I will not define size just manually. Would be better if we organize font sizes for entire project, like we did it in case of colors. So let's open variables.scss file and create new map. Let's call it font sizes. We will have 5 different font sizes. First one is going to be an extra large. So let's write as a key XL and assign to it 3 rems. Next should be large font size. So write LG with value 2.5 rems. Then we will have medium with value 2 rems. Also small font size, write 1.8 rem. And the last one will be extra small with value 1.6 rem. Alright, like in previous case, I'm going to create similar function. Let's call it size and insert as a parameter size. Next we need return. Then function called mapget, which will have arguments, name of map, font sizes, and then size. So function is created, and in order to define font size for heading, we need to call it. So let's go back to heading.scss file, then write font size. Actually, in case of heading, I want to make its font size really big. I mean bigger than extra large font size, which we just defined. I want it to be twice bigger than extra large font size. So at first, let's call the function, write size, then as an argument insert XL and multiply it by 2. So as you see, size of heading became larger, and if we check main.css file, you will find that font size of heading equals to 6 rems. Alright, let's go ahead and add some more styles to heading. Let's make its font weight lighter. Then create some space between letters using letter spacing with the value 0.5 rem. And lastly, in order to place heading in the center, let's assign to div element text align center. Alright, that's it about heading. I think it's looking good. Next we need to move on to those 2 navigations, so see you in the next video. Alright, so we have styled and aligned the logo and heading, and now it's time to work on those 2 navigations. One of them will be placed at the top right corner. As for second one, I'm going to position it under heading. Actually, for both navigations we need similar styles, so would be better if we create Mixin and include it for both of them. We're going to do that in order to protect number 1 rule of developers: do not repeat yourself. Alright, so first of all, before we start creating Mixin, I'm going to align both navigations. So let's go ahead and create new file in layout folder. Let's call it navigation.scss. Then import it in main.scss file. Let's duplicate this line and write here navigation. Okay, let's go to navigation.scss file and select first navigation, which has class first nav. So as we said, it's going to be placed at the top right corner. It will take up last 3 columns and will be placed in first row. So let's define grid column with line numbers 7 and 10. And also define grid row with line numbers 1 and 2. Alright, as for second navigation, it should be placed under heading and will take up space from 3rd column to 8th. As for row, it should be positioned in 3rd row. So let's select second navigation. It has class second nav, and define grid column with line numbers 3 and 8, and also write grid row 3 and 4. Alright, so both navigations are aligned, and actually it's time to start styling them. As we said, we're going to create Mixin, so let's open mixin.scss file and create Mixin. Let's call it navigation, and then include it for both navigations. Right, include navigation. So as you know, second navigation has a drop-down menu, and before we start styling, I think it will be better if we hide it for a while. So let's select it using class name dropdown and assign to it display none. Alright, after that, let's go back to mixin.scss file and select a list element using nesting, write ampersand list. First thing that I want to do is to place items horizontally in a row. For that, I'm going to use flexbox. So let's write display flex. Then make some space between items using justify content, space around. So as you see, navigation items are placed horizontally in a row. Next, I'm going to center them vertically using align items center. As you can see, it doesn't work because we need to define height of list as well. So let's assign to it height with the value 100%. Alright, now everything works fine, and next thing that I want to do is to get rid of default bullets from list items. So let's select li element, write ampersand item, and use list style none. Alright, so now we are ready to style items. Let's select link element, write ampersand link. At first I'm going to define color. For that, let's call function color and insert in it argument primary. Alright, next I'm going to get rid of default styles using text decoration with value none. Then change font size. In this case, call function called size and insert in it argument sm, which stands for small. Okay, so both navigations are styled. Last thing that I want to do regarding them is to create a little hover effect. On hover, I'm going to change slightly color of items. So let's write ampersand hover, then use color. In this case, I'm going to use one of the built-in functions called lighten, which will make color lighter according to percentage value, which we will define. So write lighten, use here again function color with argument primary, and as a second argument, let's insert here 40%. And lastly, use transition with values all, 0.3 seconds. Alright, so everything works fine. We have here little hover effect, and actually you can see how convenient and flexible way is to use Mixin. Okay, next that we're going to do is to work on drop-down menu. For that, let's move on to the next lecture. Alright, so in previous lecture we styled both navigations, and the last thing that we have to do regarding header is to work on drop-down menu, which is a part of second navigation, and as you remember, for now it's hidden. So first of all, we have to display it back. Let's get rid of this code at all. Then create new file in components folder and call it dropdown.scss. Then as usually import it in main.scss file. Let's duplicate this line and write dropdown. Alright, so first of all I'm going to take care of position of dropdown. For that, let's select UL element with class name dropdown and define its position as absolute. In order to manage layout of drop-down menu according to its parent element, which is li, we need to make its position relative. So let's select li element, which has class name dropdown li, and assign to it position relative. Alright, next I'm going to move dropdown a little bit down. For that, let's use top property with the value 3 rems, and also let's define width of dropdown as 10 rems. Okay, after that, let's change background color. Actually, I want drop-down menu to have slightly different background, I mean slightly darker one. Let's go ahead and use built-in function called darken. Then insert here color tertiary. Actually, let's call again function color with argument tertiary. As for second value, let's make background color 5% darker, so write 5%. Alright, so we have here darker background, and now I'm going to style items of drop-down menu. For that, let's include Mixin, which we have created for navigation. So as you see, items are looking much better now. Now let's go ahead and add some more stuff to drop-down. create some space using padding with value 1 rem. Also, let's center the text using text align center. And lastly, make dropdown a little bit rounded. Use here border radius with the value 0.2 rem. Alright, that's it about UL element for now. I think we need some space between items. So let's go ahead and select li element, right ampersand item. And define margin on top and bottom 0.5 rem and 0 on left and right sides. Next, I'm going to make font weight a little bit lighter and will be better if we decrease slightly font size. So let's select link element, right ampersand link. Then use font weight with the value 300. Then write font size and call function size. I'm going to make font extra small. So let's insert here as an argument XS. Alright, actually drop-down menu is styled and it's time to make it working. First of all, I want to create a little arrow on the right side of gift ideas, and I'm going to do that using after pseudo element. So let's select it, write ampersand after. Actually, arrow will be represented by font awesome icon, which I'm going to use from CSS. I mean, to use it in kind of different way. For that, we have to use font family, which should have value font awesome 5 free. Then as a content we have to insert proper Unicode of icon, write \F078, and lastly make its font weight bold. So as you see, we have here a little arrow on the right side of list item. Next, I'm going to create a top triangle for drop down menu, and actually I will do it using before pseudo element. So let's select before, write ampersand before. At first, leave content empty and make element block level using display block. Next, we need to position element in the right way. For that, let's make its position absolute. Then define top property as minus 1.5 rem. As for left property, let's assign to it 7.3 rems. And lastly, in order to position drop down perfectly, let's define its right property as minus 2.8 rems. Alright, so the triangle will be created using technique in which we will manipulate on by borders. In order to demonstrate and make it clear, I'm going to use different colors for different borders. We need to use border top with values 15 pixels, solid, and red. Then duplicate it 3 times and change sides. We need right, then bottom, left, and also change colors. Use here green, orange, and blue. So that's the way how borders are looking for now. As you see, they cross each other. So in order to create triangle effect, first of all, we need to get rid of border top. And then we just need to make borders on left and right sides transparent. So finally, we have here triangle, and the only thing that we have to do is to change its color. Let's copy this value because we need to make color of triangle same as background color of drop-down is. So actually everything is ready to make drop-down menu working. I mean, by default, we're going to hide it and it will be displayed when we hover on list item. In order to hide drop-down, let's use visibility with the value hidden and also opacity 0. Then select drop-down li with hover. Use here nesting, right ampersand hover. Then select drop-down itself. So in order to display menu back, we have to assign to it visibility with the value visible, and we have to make opacity 1. And lastly, to make effect nicer, let's use transition with the values opacity 0.3 seconds. So as you can see, drop-down menu is hidden, and when we hover on list item, it's displaying nicely. Alright, that's it about drop-down menu. Actually, we have just finished working on header. Next, we're going to create slideshow, and for that, let's move on to the next video. Alright, so once we are done with header, it's time to move on and create another section of our project. Actually, it's going to be a slideshow. We will have a couple of images changing with fade effect, and each slide will have little content. So in this video, we're going to create HTML structure for slideshow. Actually, before we start writing the code, I'm going to insert here comments. Let's do it for previous section as well. Write header. Then end of header. And then do the same for our new section. Write slideshow. And then end of slideshow. Alright, let's open section element and assign to it class slideshow. Overall, we will have 5 slides. They will be similar to each other. So I'm going to create the first one, and then I will duplicate it 4 times. Let's open development and assign to it class slideshow slide. Actually, this development will be wrapper of slide itself. Next, I'm going to insert another development, which will be wrapper of content. So let's assign to it class slideshow content. Actually, it will consist of 2 elements. We will have heading and paragraph. So let's open h2 heading element and write as a content slide 1. Then open p element and insert in it some dummy text. Alright, so the last member of slide is going to be an image. Let's create img element. And in source attribute, insert path of image. In images folder, select image called img1. Alright, so here we have our first slide. As we said, we're going to have 5 of them. So let's duplicate it 4 times. And then change headings and names of images. We need slide 2, img2. Then 3, 4, and 5. Alright, that's it about HTML markup of slideshow. Everything is prepared to start building it. And for that, let's move on to the next lecture. Okay, so HTML markup is ready for slideshow, and now it's time to style it and then make it working. So overall, we have 5 slides. Each of them contains image and some content, and slides should be changed with fade effect. First of all, I'm going to build slide itself, and then after that, we will run slideshow. Alright, so let's create new file in layout folder. Call it slideshow.scss. Then import it in main.scss file. Let's duplicate this line and write slideshow. At first, let's take care of layout of slideshow. It will take up all the columns of container, and also it will be placed in second row. So let's select slideshow and define grid column with line numbers 1, -1. And then we need grid row with line numbers 2 and 3. For now, nothing is changed here. Now we need to select slide itself and manage position. So let's write ampersand slide and make its position absolute. And also we need to position relative to its parent element in order to define position according to wrapper. So write position relative. Then define top and left properties and make both of them 0. So here you see only one image. Actually, it's the last one because when we used position absolute, slides have placed on each other. Next, I'm going to make width of slideshow 100%. As for height, I want to make it 80% of viewport. So we need 80 VH. And lastly, let's inherit width and height of slideshow for slide as well. Write width with the value inherit and height with the same value. Alright, so that's the way how slideshow is looking for now. Next, I'm going to take care of images and also content. So let's select image element I'm going to inherit width and height for images as well, because I want it to take up the same height and width as its parent does. So let's grab this code and paste it here. As you see, image is stretched. It has lost its quality, and in order to fix that, let's use property called object fit with value cover. Alright, that's it about image. Next, I'm going to move on to content. I'm in this heading and paragraph. Let's select content, write ampersand content. First of all, let's change its background color. Use here RGBA, then call function color with argument secondary, and as an opacity write 0.9. Then define its position as absolute. After that, I'm going to place content down below, so let's make it bottom position as 6 rems, and then define left with the same value. Alright, so content is aligned, and now it's time to make it looking good. At first, let's define its width. Actually, I'm going to use here property called max width. I'm using it for responsiveness on different screen sizes. Let's set it as 40 rems, and then create some padding. Use 5 rems. Alright, so content is looking much better now. Next, I'm going to take care of heading and paragraph. So let's select heading element and define its font size. I'm going to call here function size. Actually, I want to make font a little bit larger than extra large font size. So at first, insert here argument XL, and then add to it 1.2 rem. And also change color. Call again function color with argument primer. Alright, that's it about heading. Next, let's move on to paragraph. Select P element. Make some space at the top and bottom using margin. Write 1 rem on top and bottom and 0 on left and right sides. And lastly, change font size. Call here function size with argument SM. Alright, so we are done with content, and actually we have built entire slide. Now it's time to make slideshow working, and for that let's move on to the next lecture. Alright, so in previous lecture we built and styled slides, and finally it's time to make slideshow working. Actually, slides will be changing with fade effect. Throughout this lecture we're going to use some advanced stuff, so I recommend to you to be more focused. In order to be more understandable and clearer what we're going to do, at first I'm going to use pure CSS, and then we will convert it into SASS. Slideshow will run during 20 seconds. Overall we have 5 slides, so each slide should be displaying during 4 seconds. In other words, slides should be changing in every next 4 seconds. First of all, I'm going to create keyframes. Let's call it slideshow. So on 0%, slide should be hidden. For that we have to insert here visibility hidden and opacity 0. Then as a next breakpoint we need 2% on which slide should be visible. So write visibility visible and opacity 1. So those two steps, I mean steps from 0% to 2%, will create fade effect. Then from 2% to 18%, slide should be displaying. So as a next breakpoint we need 18%. Let's copy those 2 lines here and paste. After that, from 18% to 20%, slide should be hidden. Let's copy again code from here and paste. And actually, from 20% to the end of slideshow, I mean to 100%, slide should be hidden. Again, we need here the same code. Alright, imagine that we're working now on first slide. It's displaying during first 4 seconds, including its fade effect. I mean from 0% to 20%, and then it's hidden until all other slides are displayed. Okay, now we have to define animation property for slide. Let's insert here name of animation slideshow. Then as a duration we need 20 seconds. Also I'm going to insert here value of animation timing function linear. And lastly, in order to run slideshow infinitely, write infinite. So as you see, we have fade effect. After 4 seconds, slide is getting hidden, and none of other slides is displayed. The reason is that all of them are displaying at the same time and are hiding at the same time as well. So for each slide, we need different delay time. We need to select each slide, and we have to define animation delay time with 4 seconds interval. Before we do that, at first let's hide slides by default. Let's copy this code from here and assign it to slide. Alright, as we said, we have to select slides separately, and I'm going to do that using nth child selector. In this case, I'm not going to use nesting because eventually we will change this code. So select first slide, right, slideshow slide. Then we need to use nth child selector. And in order to select first slide, we have to insert here 1. Now it's time to use property called animation delay with value 0, because for first slide we don't need any delay. Let's duplicate this code 4 times. Then change slide numbers, right, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And also change delay time. Second slide should be displayed after 4 seconds, so we need here 4 seconds. For third one, that's right, 8 seconds. Next should be 12 seconds. And for last one, we need 16 seconds. Alright, now slideshow should work properly. Let's check. As you see, it's working perfectly. After every 4 seconds, slides are changing with fade effect, and it continues infinitely. Alright, so we made slideshow working using pure CSS. We selected each slide separately, and you agree that it's not the perfect way. We can make this code more concise and flexible using SASS. At first, I'm going to create variable, let's call it animList. And now we have to create multi-list. Each list item will be a list itself. So we will have 2 values in each nested list. First one will be an argument of nth child function, right, 1. As for second value, it should be delay time of proper slide. In this case, for first one, we need 0 second. In the same way, write values for second slide, place here comma, and then 2, 4 seconds. Then we need 3, 8 seconds. 4, 12 seconds. And lastly, 5, 16 seconds. Alright, next we need to use each loop. We have to loop through this list. So as a current item, let's write here variable item. Then we need keyword in and name of list, animList. Alright, so it's time to select slide, right, slideshow slide, and then use nth child selector. So we need to insert here proper number of slides, I mean first, second, third, and so on. For that, we have to get first values from those nested lists. In order to do that, we need to use interpolation. And then we have to use one of SASS built-in functions called nth. Actually, it allows us to select a specific item from the list. It will have 2 arguments. First one is going to be current item. As for second argument, we have to insert here 1, and I will explain why. So on first iteration, current item will be this nested list and not only just first value. Second argument, 1, which we passed here, means that we will grab this first value from that nested list. So eventually, on first iteration, we will get here nth child 1. And the same way on second iteration, we will have nth child 2, and so on. Alright, that's it about nth child selector, and now we have to work on animation delay property in the same way. So in case of nth child selector, we needed first values from nested lists, and now in case of animation delay, we need second values from lists. I mean those delay times. So we have to write function nth, and then we have to insert as a first argument item. As for second one, we need to insert 2. Alright, let's delete CSS which we wrote here because now we have its better version. Then go to browser and check if it works. As you see, everything works fine. We have here same result. And if we check compiled code, then you will find same CSS code which we used for the first time. Alright, Actually, that's it. We have finished working on slideshow. Only thing that we have to do is to fix one little problem. When we hover on navigation item, drop-down menu is no longer displaying because it ended up behind slides. So in order to fix that problem, we just need to define the index property for header. Let's go to header.scss file and write the index with value, let's say 100. Alright, so now everything works fine, slideshow is working, and it's time to move on to the next section, so see you in the next video. Okay, so in the last video we finished working on slideshow, and now we have to move on and start building our next section. It's going to be a featured product section. It will consist of 3 different products. We will have nice hover effect, and at the bottom of the section we'll create nice cool button. As usually, let's start building structure of the section. Let's insert here comments, products, then end of product, then open section element, and assign to it class products. At first I'm going to create heading of this section, so open div element with class products heading, then insert in it h1 heading element, which will have class name products heading text, and as a content write featured products. Alright, now I'm going to create products wrapper, which will include 3 different products. So let's open div element and assign to it class products wrapper. Then inside it insert another div, which will be wrapper of product itself, and it will have class product. This div element will contain 2 direct children elements. First one will be an image. Let's insert here path of image. We need image product 1. Let's assign to it class product img. As for second element, it will be div, which will wrap some content, and this content will be displayed when we hover on image. So let's open another div element, assign to it class name product description. So this div element will consist of 3 different elements. We will have heading, paragraph, and link element. So let's open h2 heading element, which will have class product description heading. Let's copy class name from here and then just add heading. As a content, write dress. Next we need to create paragraph. Let's paste here class name and then add price. As a content, write price. Then open span element and insert in it amount $150. Alright, after paragraph we need link element, which actually should be button, so let's open it. Then paste again class and add btn. As for content, write buy now. Alright, that's it about first product. Overall we will have 3 of them, so let's go ahead and duplicate it twice. Then change image names and also content. We need here product 2, then pants. As for price, write $100. Then product 3, shirt, and $50. Alright, that's all about products. As we said, besides them we will have a button, but I'm going to create it later. I mean after styling those products. Okay, see you in the next video. Alright, so we have prepared HTML markup for product section, I mean particularly for products, and now we have to start styling it. So first of all, let's create new file in layout folder, call it products.scss. Then import it in main.scss file. Let's duplicate this line and change file name, write products. Okay, so at first I'm going to define position for the section. It will take up all available columns inside container. As for row, it will be placed in 3rd row. So let's select section element with class name products. Then define grid column with line numbers 1, -1, and grid row with line numbers 3 and 4. Alright, after that I'm going to take care of heading element of section. At first, let's select its wrapper div, right, ampersand heading, and create some space at the top and bottom using margin, right, 5 rem, and 0 on left and right sides. Next, I'm going to select heading itself, so right, ampersand text. At first, let's place text in the center using text align center, then increase font size. Actually, I'm going to make its font size bigger than large font size, but smaller than extra large. So let's call function size, then insert in an argument lg, and add to it 2 rems. Then make font a little bit lighter, right, font weight 300. And lastly, change color, call function color, and insert here primary. Alright, so heading is ready, it's looking good, and now it's time to move on and take care of products. At first I'm going to manage their layout, and for that I want to use Flexbox. Actually, it would be better if we create Mixin, because those styles will be reused later. So let's open mixins.scss file and create new Mixin. Call it Flex Position. Actually, we're going to use some Flexbox properties, but with different values in different cases. So we need to insert here some default parameters and values. First one is going to be justify content center. Let's write it in kind of short way and assign to it center. Second one will be align items with the same value. So we need here 3 properties. First one will be display with the value flex, then justify content, and by default let's assign to it first parameter. So it means that when we include this mixin, then by default justify content property will get center as a value, but if we indicate another value as an argument, then that value will be applied to. In the same way, let's define align items and assign to it second parameter. Alright, let's include this mixin for wrapper of products. Let's select it, right, ampersand wrapper, and include flex position. In this case, we need center for justify content and for align items as well, so we don't have to insert here any argument. Alright, so products are aligned horizontally, and now it's time to style them, and then finally create hover effect. Let's select div element with class name product. Then inside it select image, right, ampersand img, and set its width as 100%. We are doing that in order to make image responsive. Next, I'm going to take care of description. We need to style it, so let's select div element, right, ampersand description. First of all, let's position this element. It should be placed in the center of product. For that, let's set its position as absolute. Then, in order to manage its layout according to product, we need to assign to it position relative. And to position description perfectly in the center, let's set top and left properties as 50%. And then we need transform, translate with arguments minus 50%, and again minus 50%. Alright, so as you can see, description is placed in the center of product, but for now it doesn't look good. So we need to style it and also style its containing elements. Let's change background color. I'm going to use one of SASS built-in functions. It's called transparentize, and it allows us to make color transparent. This function takes 2 arguments. First one is going to be color. Let's call function color with argument secondary. As for second argument, let's insert here 0.4. So it means that opacity of this color will be decreased by 40%. Alright, let's go ahead and create some padding. Assign to it 2 rems. Then create border. Assign to it values 0.1 rem. Solid, and color primary. Besides that, let's make this box a little bit rounded. Use here border radius with the value 0.5 rem. And lastly, change color of text. Let's use here color primary. Alright, that's it about div elements. Now we have to style its containing elements, I mean heading, paragraph, and button. Let's go ahead and start from heading, select it, right, ampersand heading. For heading, I just want to increase font size. Let's call function size and insert here XL. Next, I'm going to select paragraph, right, ampersand price. Let's increase its font size. Use again function size with argument LG. Then make font lighter, right, font weight 300. And lastly, make some space at the top and bottom, right margin, 1 rem, and then 0. Alright, as you know, we wrapped amount of price by span element because I'm going to make it slightly bolder. So let's select it and set its font weight as 600. Alright, that's it about paragraph. The last element that we're going to style is button. So let's go ahead and select it, right, ampersand btn. At first, let's change font size. I'm going to use here extra small font size. Then remove underline using text decoration none. Change color. Let's use here color quaternary. Also make link element as a block level element, right, display block, and then create some padding. On top and bottom, write 0.5 rem, and then 1 rem on left and right sides. Alright, next I'm going to create custom border. Let's assign to it values 0.1 rem, solid, and as a color, let's use quaternary. And finally, change background color. Let's use here function lighten. Then insert here color primary. And as a second argument, write 20%. Alright, so elements are styled, but as you see, we need to center them inside box. So let's assign to description, text align, center. So the last thing that we have to do is to create hover effect. By default, I'm going to hide description, and when we hover on product, it should be displayed. In order to hide it, let's assign to description opacity 0 and visibility hidden. So description is hidden, and I'm going to display it when we hover on product. Let's select it with hover, right, ampersand hover. Then select product description and assign to it opacity 1 and visibility visible. In order to make effect nicer, let's use transition, assign to it all, then as a duration write 1 second, and besides that we need some delay time, so write 0.5 second. So if we hover, then description will be displayed nicely. Alright, so actually we're almost done. Only thing that I'm going to do is to decrease slightly opacity of images on hover, because I think effect will be much better. So again, select product with hover, then select image itself, write product img, and insert here opacity 0.5. Again, use transition. Actually, we need here same transition, so let's copy and paste it here. Alright, so everything works fine. We have here nice hover effect, and actually with products we are done. Next, I'm going to create button at the bottom of this section, and for that, let's move on to the next video. Alright, so we have finished working on products, and now we have to create button at the bottom of this section. It's going to be kind of different button with nice hover effects, so I hope it should be really interesting for you. First of all, let's open index.html file and create markup. Let's open div element and assign to it class products btn. Then insert in it link element with class name btn. Button will consist of background, little arrow, and some text. So let's open div element and assign to it class btn_bg. Actually, we will use this div element for background. Next, we need another div element for arrow. Let's open it and assign to it class arrow. And then inside the div element, we need 3 more divs. Using them, we will create an arrow. So let's open first one. It should have some classes. First one is going to be arrow line. It's for common styling. As for second one, let's write arrow line 1. It will be used for individual styling. Let's duplicate this line twice and then change class names. We need here arrow line 2 and then 3. Lastly, we need span element, which will include text for button. Let's assign to it class btn text and insert here some content, right? See more. Alright, so HTML markup for button is ready, and now it's time to start styling it. For that, I'm going to create a new file in components folder. Let's call it button.scss. Then import it in main.scss file, duplicate this line, and change name of file, write button. Alright, so first of all, let's place button in the center. For that, let's go to products.scss file. Then down below, select div element with class name products_btn and include here mixin called flex position. Alright, then go to button.scss file, select link element which has class name btn. At first define its width, set it as 16 rems, then height, assign to it 4 rems. Get rid of default underline using text decoration none. And also I'm going to create border for a while. Let's assign to it values 0.1 rem, solid, and make its color black. Alright, next that I want to do is to create background. I mean to make it just visible. So select div element, write %bg. Then define a width and height. Let's make both of them 4 rems. And change background color. Let's use here color primary. So here we have background, but it's placed above the text and we need to place them side by side. For that, I'm going to use flexbox. Let's include mixin for btn. Right, flex position. Instead of justify content center, which is a default value, I want to use justify content, space around. So as you see, elements are placed side by side. Next, I want to change shape of background and make it circle. For that, we have to use border radius with value 5 rems. So before we move on to text, I'm going to define position for background. Let's set it as absolute. And in order to manage position according to its parent element, let's assign to link position relative. And lastly, I'm going to set left property of background as 0 because we need to place it at the left edge of button. Alright, let's move on and take care of text. Select it, write %text. Then change font size, call function size and insert here argument XS. Also make text uppercase using text transform uppercase. And then change color. Let's use here color primary. Alright, now it's time to create an arrow. By default we will have small arrow and on hover it will change its shape. So let's go ahead and start creating it. First of all, let's select wrapper div element which has class name arrow. I want its content to be placed in the center, and for that let's include mixin flex position. So overall we have 3 div elements for 3 arrow lines. As we said, at first we will create small arrow, and we're going to do that using second and third lines. So let's select lines using common class, write line. Then define height, make it 0.2 rem. Change background color. Let's use here color secondary. And lastly, set position as absolute. Alright, so as you see, for now nothing is visible here because we need to define width of lines as well. So select line 2, write ampersand line 2, set its width as 1 rem, then duplicate this code and change class name. We need here line 3. So now lines are visible, but they are placed on each other. That's why we see here only one line. In order to fix that, we have to rotate lines by z-axis, but with different directions. So for second line, we need to write transform, then rotate z with value 45 degrees, then copy this line, paste it for third line, and add here just minus sign. As you see, now lines are rotated. They are looking as X, and actually we don't need it. We need them to be looking as arrow. By default, they are rotated according to their centers. I mean, transform origin of lines is set as center, and we have to change it and make it right. It means that they should rotate from right corner. So let's assign to line transform origin and set it as right. So now that's it, what we wanted to get. We have here a small arrow, and now we have to work on line number 1. Let's select it, write ampersand line 1, and set its width as 2 rems. So now line first is visible, but it's not placed quite correctly. We need to move it a little bit to the left side. So let's do it using transform, translate X, and insert here minus 0.7 rem. And also I'm going to get rid of border, which we created at the beginning, because we don't need it anymore. Alright, so line 1 is aligned in the right way, and finally it's time to create hover effect. So on hover we will increase size of background, it will cover entire button, and also we will move arrow a little bit to the right side. By default line 1 should be hidden, so let's make its width 0. Then select button with hover, write ampersand hover. Next we need to select background, write btn bg, and make its width 18 rems. Let's make effect nicer using transition. We need here width and duration 0.2 seconds. So if we hover, then size of background will be increased, but we have here a little problem. Text is no longer visible. We need to change its color because text and background have similar colors. So we need to change color of text on hover. Let's select again button with hover. Then select text, write btn text. And change color. Use here color secondary. So as you see, text still is not visible, and the reason is that on hover, background covers it, and text ends up behind background. In order to fix that, we just need to use the index property. Let's assign to it 10. Now, you can see that everything works fine, text is visible. Alright, the last thing that we have to do is to take care of arrows. On hover, we need to increase width of line first, and also we need to move entire arrow a little bit to the right side. So let's select button with hover, then select arrow, and assign to it transform, translate X with the value 1 rem, and then use transition for arrow, write transform with duration 0.2 seconds. After that, we need to increase width of line 1, so let's select button with hover, then we need arrow line 1, and set its width as 2 rems, and then finally use transition for line 1. We need here width and duration 0.2 seconds. So if we hover, then we will get here really nice effect. Everything works perfectly, and actually we can say that we have finished working on featured product section. Alright, next we need to move on and start creating footer, so see you in the next video. Alright, so we have finished working on featured product section, and as I promised, we have to move on and start creating our last section, which is going to be footer. Actually, footer will consist of multiple parts, so it's not going to be quite simple one. Alright, as usually, let's start building HTML markup. First of all, let's insert here some comments. We need footer, then end of footer, then open footer element, and assign to it class footer. So overall, we will have three main parts. First one is going to be navigation. So let's open div element with class name footer nav wrapper. So we will have here heading and a couple of navigation items. Let's insert here h3 heading element, assign to it class footer nav heading, and as a content write more info. Alright, so navigation will be represented by list. Let's open UL element. It will have class footer nav. Then we need to insert here several list items. So let's open li element and assign to it class name footer nav item. Next we need link element with class footer nav link and with content company. So we will have 5 list items. Let's duplicate li element 4 times and then change items. For second one, write sales. Next one should be returns. Then we will have privacy policy. And for last one, write contact us. Alright, that's all about first part of footer. It's ready. Next we need to create second part, which will include forms and also social media icons. So let's open div element and assign to it class name contact. Before we create forms, we need heading and paragraph. So let's open h2 heading element. It will have class name contact heading. And as a content, let's insert here sign up for our newspaper. Next we need paragraph. Let's assign to it class contact paragraph. And insert little dummy text. After that, I'm going to create form element. Next we need to open div element, which will be wrapper of 2 input elements. I mean inputs for first name and for last name. Let's assign to it class inputs group. So as we said, first input element is going to be for first name. Let's open it. Then assign to it class inputs group text. And also use here placeholder attribute with value first name. Actually, I'm going to duplicate input and just change value of placeholder. We need here last name. Alright, after that we need another group of inputs. So open again div element and assign to it class inputs group. Then inside it create input element, which is going to be for email. So we need to change type, right here email. And then assign to it class inputs group email. I'm going to use again placeholder attribute. Let's insert here value your email address. And the last element which we need to create inside form is button. So let's open again input element, change its type, make it submit. Then assign to it class inputs group btn. And lastly, use attribute value and assign to it sign up. Alright, that's it about form elements. As we said, next we need to create social media icons. So let's go ahead and create UL element. It will have class name social icons. Next we need to open li element. Let's assign to it class social icons item. Li element should be followed by link, which will have class name social icons link. And now we have to insert here icon itself. For that, let's open I element. and assign to it classes FAB, FA, Facebook. Alright, overall we will have 6 icons, so let's duplicate li element 5 times, and then go ahead and change class names. For second one we need YouTube. Next should be Google Plus G. Then write Twitter. Next one will be LinkedIn, in. And for last one, write Instagram. So here we have social media icons, and now it's time to create last part of footer, which is going to be again list. Let's open div element. Assign to it class contact list wrapper. So it will consist of heading and list with a couple of items. So let's open h3 heading element. It will have class contact list heading. Let's insert here content, close store. After that, I'm going to create a list. So create UL and assign to it class contact list. So we will have 4 list items. Let's create li element, which will have class contact list item. Next we will have link. Let's assign to it class contact list link. I'm going to insert here some dummy phone number. Let's write some numbers here. So as we said, we will have 4 list items. Let's duplicate li element 3 times and then insert some dummy content. For second one, write info@gmail.com. Then write here address New York, Broadway. And for last one, insert free US delivery. Alright, so that's it. All the parts are created. For now they're looking ugly because it's just pure HTML. Let's go ahead and start styling them. See you in the next video. Alright, so once we prepared HTML markup for footer, it's time to start working on it and style this section. First of all, we need to create a new file in layout folder. Let's call it footer.scss. Then import it, duplicate this line, and write here footer. Alright, so first of all, I'm going to take care of layout of footer. It will take up all available columns in container. As for row, it's going to be placed in the last row, which is 4th. So let's go ahead and select footer. Then define grid column with line numbers 1 and -1, and also write grid row with line numbers 4 and 5. So as you know, footer consists of 3 main parts. We have 2 lists, and between them there is a contact form. I want those parts to be placed horizontally in a row, and for that it will be better if we use flexbox. We just need to include here mixin flex position. And instead of justify content center, let's use space around. Also create some padding on top and bottom. Write padding 5 rems and then 0. And create border at the top of footer. Write border top with values 0.1 rem, solid, and color primary. Alright, so all 3 parts are aligned. Also we have border at the top, and now we have to move on and start styling individual parts. Actually, we have here 2 lists, and for both of them we need same styles, so it will be better if we create mixin and then include it for both lists. So let's go to mixin.scss file and create new mixin. Call it footer list. At first I'm going to style heading, so let's select it. Write ampersand heading. I used here ampersand, and it might be a little bit confusing for you. So when we use this mixin, then this ampersand will point to an element in which we will include mixin. Before we start writing some styles, it will be better if we include this mixin for both lists. Let's go back to footer.scss file and select footer nav, and then include newly created mixin. Write footer list. Also select second list which has class name contact list. Then grab this mixin and paste it here. So now styles which we will create inside Mixin will be applied to both lists. Alright, so we are ready to start styling elements of list. Let's increase font size of heading. Call here function size with argument LG. And also change color. I'm going to use here color primary. Alright, next I'm going to select li element because I want to get rid of default bullets. So write &item and then insert list style none. Besides that, let's create some space on top and bottom, write margin, 1 rem on top and bottom, and 0 on left and right sides. Okay, after that, let's take care of link elements because for now they're looking really ugly. So select link, write &link. First of all, change font size. Use again function size with argument xs. Then get rid of default styles. Write text decoration none. And also change color. Let's use here function lighten with arguments color primary and 15%. Alright, last thing that I want to do regarding link element is to create a little hover effect. So let's write &hover. Then grab color property with its value and just change second argument. Instead of 15%, write 35%. And lastly, use transition with values color 0.2 seconds. Alright, that's it about lists in footer. Both of them are looking good. And now we have to move on and work on contact form. Let's do it in the next lecture. Alright, so in previous lecture we styled those two lists in footer, and now we have to move on and work on contact form. We have here heading, paragraph, couple of input elements, and social media icons. So let's go ahead and start from heading, select div element which has class name contact. Then inside it, select heading element, write &heading. At first, let's increase font size. Let's call function size and insert in it argument XL. Then change color, use function color with argument primary. And align text in the center using text align center. Alright, that's all about heading element. Let's move on and style paragraph. Select it, write &paragraph. At first increase font size. Use again function size with argument LG. Then make some space on top and bottom, write margin with values 1 rem and then 0. And again align text in the center using text align center. Alright, so heading and paragraph are looking good, and now it's time to move on and start styling input elements. As you know, we have two groups. First one consists of two text inputs. As for second one, we have input for email and button. I want those elements to be aligned horizontally, side by side in both groups. So let's select inputs group and assign to it display flags. Next, I'm going to style inputs, so let's select them, write input. First of all, create padding on all four sides, write padding with the value 1 rem. Then change font size, write function size, and insert argument xs. And then create some space using margin. At the top and bottom, write 1 rem. As for left and right sides, use 0.5 rem. So now inputs are looking much better, but I'm going to add some more styles to them. Let's create custom border. Write here values 0.1 rem, solid. Then for color, I'm going to use function darken. As a color, let's insert here function color with argument primary. And then as a second argument, write 10%. Then make inputs a little bit rounded using border radius with value 0.3 rem. And lastly, get rid of default outline. Alright, so inputs are styled, and now I'm going to define widths for them. We need different widths for text inputs, for email, and for button. So let's select text inputs, write &text, and define their width as 50%. It means that each text input will take up half of width of wrapper. After that, select input for email, write &email, and define its width as 60%. As for button, I want it to take up 40%, so let's select &btn and assign to it width with value 40%. Alright, so that's the way how input elements are looking for now. Let's add some more styles to button. At first, change color. Call function color with value secondary. and also change background color. I'm going to use here function lighten, then use here another function color with argument primary. As for percentage value, write 20%. All right, before we move on and start styling social media icons, I'm going to create some effects. I mean, on focus, I want to change color of border for text and email inputs. So let's select input with focus, right, ampersand focus. So as we said, we need effect for only text and email inputs and not for button. So we need to exclude it. For that, I'm going to use function called not. And as an argument, we have to pass here proper selector. I'm going to select button using type attribute. So let's open square brackets and write type equals to submit. Then let's go ahead and copy border property with its value, paste it here, then change color. I'm going to use here color quaternary. Also change percentage value, write 30%. And lastly, use transition, write border, and duration 0.5 seconds. So when we focus on inputs, you see that color of border is changing. It happens for text and email inputs. As for button, effect is not working because we have excluded it. All right. Besides that, I want to create hover effect for button. Let's select it with hover. On hover, I'm going to change its background color. Let's use here color primary. And also use transition, write background color with duration 0.2 seconds. All right, so hover is working, and actually with form element we are done. Next we have to move on and style social media icons. First of all, let's take care of layout. Select UL element. It has class name social icons. Actually, I want to place icons horizontally in a row, and for that let's use flexbox, right, display flex. Then create some space between items using justify content, space between. Create some padding, right, padding with value 1 rem. And also I'm going to use box sizing property with value border box. All right, next let's get rid of those default bullets and also style icons. At first select li element, write ampersand item, and assign to it list style none. Next we need to select link element. At first let's get rid of default styles using text decoration none, and then define width and height. For both of them, use 4 rems. And lastly, create border with values 0.1 rem, solid, and with color primary. All right, as you see, width and height properties are not applied to link element because, as you know, link is an inline element and we have to make it as block level element. So if we assign to it display block, then width and height properties will be applied to. Now I'm going to make border rounded. For that, let's use border radius with value 100%. Besides that, I want to place icons in the center of circle, and for that, the best solution is to use flexbox. Actually, we have created Mixin with flex properties, so let's include it. Right, include flex position. As you know, by default, this Mixin includes display flex, justify content center, and align item center, so that's why icons are perfectly centered inside circle. Actually, we no longer need display block because, as we said, this Mixin includes display flex, so let's get rid of it. Next, we need to increase size of icons, so let's select them. Then define font size, use here function size with argument empty. All right, so before we finish this lecture, I'm going to change colors of icons. I'm going to assign to them their original colors. So instead of selecting and styling each item individually, it will be better if we use each loop like we used it in case of slideshow. First of all, I'm going to create a list which will include nested lists containing numbers and colors. Let's call it social media colors. And then insert here lists. First one is going to be 1 and color 3B 5998. It's actually color of Facebook. Then as a second one, write 2 and color of YouTube B31217. Third one is going to be for Google Plus. Write color DC4E41. Then we have Twitter. Write 55ACEE. Next one is LinkedIn. Its color is 517FA4. And the last color is going to be for Instagram, right? 0077B5. All right, so list is created, and now we have to loop through it. For that, write each. Then we need variable for current item. Let's call it color. Then we have to write keyword in and name of list, social media colors. So again, we're going to use same technique. We will select item with nth child selector, and then we'll find proper color. So select social icons item, then use nth child selector. We need here interpolation, and then function called nth, which can select item from the list. This function takes two arguments. First one is going to be current item, which in this case is color. As for second argument, we need to write here 1. And lastly, select link element, write social icons link. Alright, so on first iteration, current item should be the first nested list. Then using nth function, we will grab first value from this list, which is going to be 1. Therefore, on first iteration, we will have here nth child 1, which means that we will have first li element, and it will allow us to access on first link element. On second iteration, we will have second li element, and so on. Now we need to change color, and also I'm going to change color border. So write color and assign to it function nth with arguments color and 2. Next we need border with values 0.1 rem, solid, and the same nth function with arguments color and 2. So in this case, as you see, nth function has 2 as a second argument. It means that on each iteration, it will take second values from nested lists, which actually are colors. So if we check out result in browser, then each icon will have its proper color. And also if we check compiled code, we will find each link element with its proper color. Alright, that's it. We have finished working on footer. All 3 parts are styled and looking good. And actually we can say that we have finished building our second project. The only thing that we have to do is to make it responsive on different screen sizes. And for that, let's move on to the next lecture. Alright, so we have built our second project, clothes store. All the sections are created and styled. And as we said in previous lecture, the only thing that we have to do is to make project responsive for different screen sizes. Unlike the previous project, we're going to use kind of different approach, which I think will be more sophisticated and interesting. So let's go ahead and inspect the page and switch on responsive mode. So if we make browser smaller, then navigation, which is placed on the right side, will start messing up. It happens because we have here logo on the left side. Its width is set as 10 rems. When size of this cell reaches to 10 rems, then logo stops shrinking. But navigation on the right side continues it, and eventually grid is messed up. We can fix that problem without creating any media or breakpoint. We just need to make a little change in grid layout of header. So let's open this file. As you see, as a size of first and last columns, we have here 1 fractional unit. And instead of that, we need to use min-max function, which will take following minimum and maximum values. We need to write 10 rems as minimum value, and then 1 fractional unit. Let's copy it and paste for last column as well. Now, if we make again browser smaller, then the problem will be fixed. Alright, let's go ahead and find first breakpoint. I think we have to make some changes on 1200 pixels because we need some space between navigation items. So it's time to create first breakpoint, and instead of writing just usual media query, I'm going to create Mixin, in which we will define multiple breakpoints based on some conditions. So let's go to mixin.scss file, create new Mixin, and call it response. So this Mixin will take 1 parameter. Let's insert here breakpoint. As we said, first breakpoint is going to be 1200 pixels, and I'm going to call it extra large. So if breakpoint equals to extra large, in this case 1200 pixels, then we have to change some styles. So we need here if directive, and as a condition, we have to insert breakpoint double equals to XL. Then we need to create block of code. We have to insert here media query with max width 1200 pixels. So when we include this Mixin and define argument as XL, then this condition will be true and code block inside this if statement will be executed. Actually, the block of code should not go directly in here. It will go to where we include this Mixin. In order to do that, we have to insert here keyword content with add sign. Actually, we haven't referred to content yet, and I think it's the good moment to describe its functionality. So the first breakpoint is ready. As we said, we need to create some space between first navigation items. So let's go to navigation.scss file, then include mixin, right, include response, and as an argument insert here XL. So in order to create space between items, I'm going to change starting line number of grid column. So instead of 7, let's write here 6. As you see, we added code block to mixin, and that's exactly what content allows us to do. So as you can see, now navigation is looking good. Next, I think we need to decrease slightly height of slideshow. So let's go to slideshow.scss file, then include mixin, right, include response with breakpoint XL, and set height as 70 VH. Alright, so on that breakpoint, we don't have to do anything more. Let's go ahead and find next one. I think it should be 1000 pixels because some of these sections and elements are not looking quite good. So let's create new if directive. Actually, I'm going to duplicate it. Then change XL into LG, which stands for large. And also change max width. Let's make it 1000 pixels. Let's start again from navigation because we need some more space between items. So let's go to navigation.scss file, then duplicate this code. Instead of XL, insert LG, and change starting line number of grid column. Instead of 6, write 5. Alright, next I'm going to take care of second navigation because we need some space between its items as well. Let's go ahead and copy this code, paste it for second navigation, and change line numbers of grid column. By default we have 3 and 8, and in this case we need 2 and 9. Alright, that's it about navigations. Next element that I'm going to take care of is main heading. As you see, it's wrapped. Actually, I think we can fix this problem without including any mixin. Let's go to heading.scss file. As you see, it has grid column with line numbers 4 and 7. So if it takes up entire width of header, then it won't be wrapped anymore. So in order to do that, we just need to change line numbers as 1 and -1. Okay, so heading is looking good, and actually on the breakpoint with header, we're done. Next section which needs some changes is slideshow. I think we need to decrease again its height slightly. So let's open slideshow.scss file, then duplicate this code, change breakpoint, write LG, and instead of 70 VH, write 60 VH. Alright, next we have to decrease padding of content of slide. So let's go ahead and include mixin inside content. Let's copy it from here, then paste, and write padding 2 rems. Okay, that's it about slideshow. Let's move on and customize product section. Actually, products are looking good. We need to make some changes for description, which appears on hover. So let's open products.scss file. Then inside description, paste mixin. At first, I'm going to change padding. Let's make it 1 rem. Then let's decrease size of heading and paragraph. Paste again mixin. Then write font size. Use function size and insert argument MD. Then I'm going to grab this code and paste it for paragraph. Let's change font size right here as N. Alright, so heading and paragraph are looking good. And lastly, we need to work on button. Let's go ahead and paste mixin for it as well. Decrease padding. Write values 0.2 rem and 0.5 rem. Alright. That's it about product section. On the breakpoint, it doesn't need any other changes. Let's move on to footer. Actually, it's not looking good. We have to make here some changes. Let's open footer.scss file. So on that breakpoint, I want footer element to be wrapped. Let's insert here mixin and then assign to footer flex wrap with value wrap. As you see, footer element wraps, but its containing parts are getting too close to each other. In order to fix that, we have to manipulate on by padding. So let's paste mixin for contact. Then write padding, 0 at the top and bottom, and 10 rems on left and right sides. Now we have a better result, but that's not what we wanted to get. We need both lists to be placed side by side at the top of contact form. In order to achieve that, we have to change value of order property for contact form. By default, flex items order number is 0. So if we make it 1 for contact, then it will be ended up under lists. So, as you can see, contact form is placed under lists, but we need some space between them. So let's use margin top with value 4 rems. Alright, that's it about 1000 pixels. Everything seems to be looking good. Let's go ahead and find next breakpoint. I think it should be about 760 pixels. So let's create new breakpoint, go to mixins.scss file, then duplicate if directive, change breakpoint, let's call it MD, medium, and also change max width, right, 760 pixels. So first of all, before we customize individual elements, I want to decrease font size for HTML element. We are doing that because it will have influence on entire web page. So let's go to base.scss file and include here mixin, right, include response with breakpoint MD, then write font size. So until this point, 1 rem was equal to 10 pixels. And now I want it to be equal to 9 pixels. In order to calculate new font size for HTML, we have to divide 9 pixels by 16 pixels. And we will get 56.25%. So as you see, font size for entire web page is decreased slightly. Alright, let's go ahead and work on navigations. We need some space between items. So let's go to navigation.scss file, then duplicate this code, change breakpoint, we need MD, and then change starting line number, write 4. I'm going to grab this code and let's paste it for second navigation. We need here line numbers 1 and -1. So it means that second navigation will take up entire width of header. Alright, next I'm going to take care of slideshow. I want to decrease its height. So let's go to slideshow.scss file, then duplicate this code, change breakpoint, write MD, and set height as 50 VH. Alright, next we have product section, but we don't have to make any changes for this section, it's looking good. So let's move on to footer. I think we need to decrease slightly font size of contact, heading, and paragraph. So let's go to footer.scss file and include mixin for heading. Change font size, write function size and insert here LG. Then grab this code, paste it for paragraph and make font size MD. Alright, so now they're looking better. Let's make browser a little bit smaller. Actually, I want to mention that here happens some weird thing regarding text inputs. They should shrink like inputs down below, but for some reason they don't. I'm sure that it's an issue of Mozilla Firefox because in Google Chrome they work fine. So anyway, in order to make those inputs looking a little bit better on that breakpoint, I decided to assign to wrapper, to inputs group, justify content with value center. Alright, so on that breakpoint, we are done. And actually, I think that there might be left only one last breakpoint. So let's make browser smaller. I think next breakpoint should be about 560 pixels. So let's go ahead and create new media. Go to Mixins.css file, duplicate if directive, then change breakpoint, right here SM, and also change max width. We need 560 pixels. First of all, again, I'm going to decrease font size of HTML element. Let's make one rem equal to 8 pixels. At first, duplicate this code and change breakpoint. We need here SM. So in order to make one rem equal to 8 pixels, we have to divide 8 pixels by 16 pixels, which is going to be 50%. Alright, so on smaller screen size, we have to make here some changes. Let's start from header. In order to create some space between items of first navigation, let's go to navigation.scss file. Then duplicate this code. Change breakpoint. We need SM. And also change starting line number, right 2. Alright, so that's it about header. Next, we need to make slide change for content of slide. We need some space between content and the right edge of page. For that, I'm not going to use media query. Let's go to slideshow.css file and just define right position of content, and by default set it as 6 rems. Okay, let's move on to product section. As you can see, we have to make some changes for description. I think would be better if we hide heading and paragraph at all and just leave button. So let's go to products.scss file. Then duplicate Mixin inside heading of description. Change breakpoint, write SM. And also we need here display none. Then grab this code and paste it for paragraph. So heading and paragraph are hidden, but button itself doesn't look quite good. I think we can get rid of border and background of description at all. So let's go ahead and duplicate this code. Right here SM, and then insert here background color with value transparent and border none. Alright, lastly, let's increase width of button and also create some padding. Let's again duplicate code, right here SM, and then change values of padding. We need here 0.5 rem and 0.7 rem, and also define width. Let's set it as 7 rems. Alright, so with product section we are done. The only thing that we have to do is to take care of social media icons in footer. As you see, they are too close to each other. So let's go to footer.css file. Then insert here mixin. I'm going to decrease width and height. Let's make both of them 3 rems. And also decrease font size for I element. Paste here mixin. And write font size. Then function size. And insert here SM. Alright, so that's it. Our project is responsive on all screen sizes. Finally, we can say that we have finished working on it, and actually our course is over. I hope you have enjoyed it, learned lots of useful things in SASS, which is really the most popular CSS preprocessor today. I want to say thank you for being with us. Wish you all the best. Keep learning, improve your skills and knowledge. Also, I want to say that stay tuned because we're going to release other new courses which will help you to go further and to become a really good web developer. Alright, good luck and bye-bye.